So we've had a big scandal over the setting of the LIBOR interest rate benchmark involving banks. Banks were able to manipulate the benchmark by submitting data based on transactions that didn't happen. They didn't have to happen for the banks to be able to set the number. Chris, we've been looking at whether something similar could happen with oil benchmarks, some of which work in a similar way. So can you just explain how they work and why it's slightly similar?
Well, the parallels are pretty striking. So obviously LIBOR is extremely influential. You have maybe 300 trillion worth of contracts benchmarked off it. But then Brent is also an incredibly hefty benchmark. About 70% of the world's oil is based on it. And again, it's a very, very similar process that the oil traders put in the data, but they can do so in a self-interested way because it doesn't need to be based on real transactions. And of course, these are the guys who are also trading the derivatives contract, so they can play both sides of this. Right,
so we looked at this time because a bunch of securities regulators who were meeting last week issued a report and said, well, you know, they'd like to see some changes in this. But the interesting thing here, as you pointed out in your piece, is the securities regulators can't control the benchmark here. All they can control is derivatives that might use the benchmark. So what are they trying to do about it?
Well, their nuclear option, I suppose, is to forbid the use of Brent as a benchmark for the futures.
Right.
But it's much less direct. They don't, as you say,
they can't stop people trading oil.
Yeah. No.
Physical oil based on.
No. But they've encountered a huge amount of pushback. And I think because there hasn't been a big scandal, it does make it harder to address the issue in the way that it was with LIBOR.
Right, and the benchmark doesn't look broken until it looks broken.
Yeah.
Right, and that was the same with LIBOR.
Yeah, there's huge potential for abuse, and it's a very, very similar situation. But I think until you have an accident, nobody is probably going to take it very seriously because you need to exert quite a lot of political will to force the oil companies and other oil traders to actually submit all of the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
Right, and as we found following the financial crisis, getting into international regulators to cooperate and be able to push things through hasn't proved as easy as some people hoped.
Exactly.
All right, we'll leave it there. We'll be keeping an eye on the oil benchmarks, and we'll have more breaking views tomorrow.